This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome to the scorching edition of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Hopefully everybody's staying cool in this hot heat that we've been experiencing the last 2 weeks. But are the general managers in town going to heat up in regards to picking up the phone and making some deals? Well, Steve Yzerman did, found a goalie. I'm curious to see and hear what Adam thinks about John Gibson. I think everybody named John has a chance to do great things between the pipes. So we'll see what he thinks about a player that is looking to rebound. It also has a feel of a project because of what happened last year. But if you can get back anywhere near the semblance of who he was before, well, maybe Steve Yzerman found finally his goalie. But did he do the right thing by selecting another developmental player that's going to take minimum 4 years to appear on the ice for the Detroit Red Wings? You know, making a veteran move, bringing back Patrick Kane. It's a slow start. Unfortunately, the Panthers are keeping the band back together. Lots of NHL moves are taking place, not involving the Detroit Red Wings in terms of the big names. Obviously, the Panthers defenseman staying. Ekblad's not coming to Detroit. You recognize, all right, it's going to have to be some sophisticated moves, it looks like, for Steve Yzerman. Does Adam have confidence that he'll make them? We'll talk about it. And then the Pistons. Oh, boy, cuz it went from hope to disdain real fast. Gosh darn it, Malik Beasley looking like reports saying that he had financial problems, that there's now an investigation regarding his gambling habits from last year, and so the Pistons had to quickly pivot. How much did Beasley's alleged issues impact the future of the Pistons? We're going to talk about it. Special edition. It's the upgrade edition of Doc and Jock this week. It's about the Pistons, and it's about the Detroit Red Wings trying to get better. And I think because it's kind of fair to assume to start, when we look at it, when Trajan Langdon and Steve Yzerman kind of talk, I get the point where you don't want to hype up like, hey, we want to be aggressive, because agents then take that and go cha-ching and add $1 million to every player contract that they want. I get it. But at the same token, there does have to be a little bit better balance, I think, between being truthfully honest about your plans and selling a little bit of hope. And I just think you do that by saying we're always looking to get better. We have a strong plan A, plan B about making this team better so that we can get to the playoffs. And I just think that they just got to use a little bit more words of like advancement, getting better, getting closer to the championship. They don't say those things. They just say, hey, we're going to be, looking. I don't like the word around the margins. I don't want to, that basically means we're going to fill out role players. Like we're going to fill out, we're going to try to help Ivy and Cunningham. Like, no, you can go out and get good talent that was out there. Same thing with the Red Wings. It just feels like maybe you could have made a splash for Ekblad and pay more, overpay a little bit. Cutting Tarasenko was the easiest move, we all thought. Adam would have cut that deal the second the season ended. We all knew it was a disaster from what we saw on tape the whole year. But I look at it starting with the Red Wings. I just felt like, okay, first and foremost, are you okay with the position that we targeted first, which is the goalie position? Are you okay with the deal to give up a draft pick to get John Gibson?
So let me run you through the gamut of emotions that I experienced when I found out what the Red Wings did with John Gibson. So I was playing in a golf scramble, and my buddy Scott, who's a big-time hockey guy, he's one of the guys who I love to talk hockey with. He's got a great mind for it. He's really plugged into a lot of stuff in regards to hockey. He's a huge Colorado Avalanche fan, so he's really plugged into a lot of Colorado stuff as well as NHL stuff. He laughs at the Red Wings. It's fun to talk to guys like that because it's just a completely different perspective. So I take a lot of what he says with a high degree of accuracy and acuity, because I think he's really, really smart when it comes to these things. So we're golfing, and he's like, oh, Steve Yzerman making moves. He's like, you guys finally signed John Gibson. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, another freaking goalie? Like, how many damn goalies are we going to have? Like how many times are we going to just like stockpile goaltenders? And they all kind of suck. Like, none of them are really good. None of them are guys that you really want to build your team around. So I was pissed. Initially, I was pissed. And that was before I found out what he gave up. And then you look at what he gave up, and he gave up basically the body bag of Peter Mrazek and what was it, a draft pick or two. And I was like, all right, I guess. Like, you moved on from Mrazek, which I feel was a move that you didn't have to make at the trade deadline last year. Like, that move still doesn't make sense to me. But I guess it gets you here. And so now we're here. And I look at the goaltender that you present to me that your name has been attached to for what has felt like the last 4 seasons. Like, you were finally able to get it done. And when I look at it, it doesn't really pump me up. It doesn't really make me feel any sort of way. It doesn't really get me excited, because this is a goaltender who has shown when he's able to stay healthy, yeah, he's pretty good. The problem is he's never really healthy for the entire season. So you gave up a bad contract and a guy that you had here, but you let go of him, Peter Mrazek. And again, a move that you didn't have to make. You attached some draft picks and some draft capital, and you got a guy here who we'll say is better than what you had on the roster. And when you look at the roster, goaltending is a large issue with it, right? There is a massive hole in the goaltending room. It's not great. So I guess, yes, you kind of leveled that up, but it's still not very good. This guy is going to be average. And I'm trying to be polite here. Like, I'm not trying to bag on this, but this isn't. Look, great goaltenders don't come available. And they don't come available through a trade like this. Like, the last great goaltender that I can recall to be available through a trade like this was Patrick Waugh, and that was because he wanted out of Montreal. I'm trying to remember what happened with Roberto Luongo, and that's even if you think Roberto Luongo was a great goaltender. I think he had good numbers, but I don't ever think he was a great goaltender. So, like, they just don't come available, and there's a reason they don't come available. So you've got a guy who has problems. You know what makes goaltenders really, really good? Good defense in front of them. Good offense in front of them. I don't see Steve Yzerman addressing any of these issues. And I feel like that's probably the biggest issue I have with, again, adding another goaltender to this team. You've added so many goaltenders over the course of the last 3 seasons. To me, this is just another drop in a bucket. It's just another guy. You got to hope he stays healthy. And if he stays healthy, he's probably a plus instead of a minus compared to what you had in the room. But all that being said, I don't think it's a huge gain for you. I don't think it's doing a ton for you as far as your roster goes. I think what would help push this team forward and what would help spur this team forward is adding another defenseman, adding another top forward, getting these guys in here who can score goals, block shots, and take care of some of the loose pucks in front of the goaltender, because all of that, I think, makes your goaltender look that much better. If you can get me a talented forward who can play on the penalty kill and could be a threat to possibly score a shorthanded goal, all of a sudden you've got my interest. This move doesn't do anything to really get my interest. I was like I said, frustrated, and then I was like, okay, because of what he gave away, because we got rid of Peter Mrazek's ball bag, and we don't have to see that anymore. But again, that was a move you didn't have to make. Again, it was Steve Yzerman doing dumb Steve Yzerman moves to now have to try to get out from underneath it. And you've seen that with the Tarasenko deal. You've seen that with a couple of the other guys that he has signed through free agency. Like, there's a lot of really bad players on this team. There's a lot of really bad contracts on this team. And now I kind of think you're starting to see Steve Yzerman panic a little bit, and he's got to unload some of these guys. The whole thing with bringing in Gibson for this team, the price I feel was reasonable enough, but I think now if you're Steve Yzerman, you've kind of put yourself into a bit of a corner, and I think Sebastian Cossa has to be up here next year. He has to be a backup goaltender, and you've heard Steve Yzerman come out and talk about playing 3 goaltenders again, running with a 3 goaltender unit. If that's the case, Cossa definitely has to be that 3rd goaltender. I want to see him be your 2nd goaltender. You have to start to work this kid into the lineup, because at this moment in time, I refer to him as Jimmy Howard. I don't know if you recall this, but Jimmy Howard was always that goaltender that was, oh, he's coming. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. And at what point does it just become an edging competition? Because he's always coming, but he's never here. You know what I'm saying? Like, Sebastian Cossa has to be up with this team. And look, Jimmy Howard was supposed to be the second coming of the goaltender to Detroit. And Jimmy Howard was just the guy. At this moment in time, I have zero confidence in Cossa. I don't know if he'll ever be with the big club. To me, he just seems like he's a 6'6" gargantuan man with pads on, and you're hoping that he can perform for you. I don't know what you're going to get from him, but I need to see him with this team next season. Does he have to be on this roster for you to be, I guess, satisfied with what they're doing with this goaltending room? Because Gibson being added to it, again, it's just what Steve Yzerman is doing just doesn't make sense to me, I guess, is the bigger issue that I'm having. And I just don't know if he's necessarily building this team correctly. Going out and investing in another goaltender, to me, doesn't make sense when you're supposed to have the second coming of Christ on the cross in your minor league system, who's supposed to be the guy, who's supposed to be Vasilevsky-esque, and we've yet to even sniff him, and he ends up getting pulled from the Grand Rapids Griffins, and he gets put on the bench during their playoff run. I just don't know what we have there. I really feel like you need to start shoring up everything in front of the goaltender, and I think that will make for a better goaltender. What was your reaction to, I guess, Gibson, and does Cossa have to be on this team next season?
Yeah, it looks like Kossa's really struggling to catch the attention of Steve Yzerman to put him up there and give him the job, which is wild because, yeah, he did have an up-and-down year last year, and you look at a goaltender that there's such high hope for, he barely got a sniff of an opportunity, and you say, okay, Gibson is a guy that dealt with injuries last year, but he had solid numbers. So I think that in terms of veteran leadership, I do see that Steve Yzerman has a type. He likes these big-bodied goaltenders that kind of, show flashes but haven't been consistent. He hasn't found the guy. And you got two now, and you drafted another one, which was hilarious in that now it's like one of those deals where you remember when Matt Millen came to town, he just would draft receiver after receiver after receiver, and he couldn't just find one that actually was going to stick and be very productive. So hopefully it's not one of those deals where Steve Yzerman cannot just, lock down and find a guy. So Gibson has a lot to prove. I like the fact that he feels like, that he left some things on the table with Anaheim, and you realize, okay, this is a goaltender that's a big body, can move around. You just got to make sure he stays healthy and be consistent. But you're absolutely right. Cossa needs to have some experience at the next level, and you do also have Augustine in the pipeline too. I think he's going to have a great year with Michigan State. So I just, it's an upgrade. So that's fine. And I think that when Steve Yzerman has targeted guys, they give them production in spurts, like with Husso and with Cam Talbot. But then it's just kind of like these are a bunch of guys with ceilings that are not really that high. Cossa and Augustine, I do think, have elevated ceilings. They got another draft pick. So you just need somebody to hold the fort down, stop the puck, be consistent, and have over 90% save percentage and get after it. But I'm wondering because with the Red Wings, it just kind of felt like to me when everybody was watching, everybody was talking about it, everybody's like, Steve Yzerman's got to be a little bit more bold. Like, quickly we all recognize that with the Lions, Brad Holmes made a decision and got his starting he got his starting quarterback. He made a deal with Stafford. He was forced to. Was a little bit bold. You get Trajan Langdon, a little bit bold in regards to getting shooters and understanding that, hey, you got to get a vet and pay some people that can actually shoot three-pointers. You realize the Tigers, all right, they're bold in regards to their draft selections and bringing in guys and not cutting Javier Baez and making some decisions that in regards to adding pitching and making sure that the young core stays together and grows and making decisions that are helping the team take it a step forward. And so what's been wild with Yzerman is this stockpiling of young players, and everybody is holding on, gripping to this notion that, hey, all these young guys, the Raymonds, the Larkins, the core, they're going to do something with all these draft picks. You're like, okay, that's fine. But at what point do you need that one more star? The star can't be Patrick Kane. And you lucked into DeBrincat. That's good, but he's a hometown guy, and he wanted to be here. But you need a little bit more. Like, where's the little bit of aggression from Steve Yzerman in terms of basically, I think the the way in which I felt like social media and some fans that were vocal were saying is, look, you have a first round pick. Make sure you go out and trade it for an established NHLer. Don't take the pick. Don't get another developmental guy. This is a time where you need more stars. And then you see that Montreal made a big move. That kind of going into the draft, to me, kind of deflated me for the draft. I just checked out and I was like, we didn't get the big name. The Red Wings could have made that move. Like, I know 2 first rounders is going back to the Islanders is key, but I just felt like the Wings could have made that deal and gotten a proven scorer, somebody that could do some things, but it doesn't work like that. And the Red Wings quickly it felt like you got your hopes up for like 2 seconds. You got the peak at the big Christmas present, and then someone took it away. That's how I felt like going into the draft. I'm like, why did you pick a guy that's going to take 5 years before he even sees the ice? It's just one of those deals where the drafts aren't being used to get proven talent. I just feel like Steve Yzerman needs to get 3, 4, 5 proven guys to kind of turn things around if you have any chance to make the playoffs.
And look, here's the deal, right? The surprise of him not trading the 13th overall draft pick on draft day in the first round was shocking, especially when you look at what Montreal did and what the New York Islanders wanted. Noah Dobson would come here and would help solidify your defense. That's that player that we're talking about. That's that guy we're talking about. And it wasn't like he signed a deal that's going to break your bank. He signed a deal for less than $9 million a year. You've got about $17 million in cap space. That still gives you money to go out there and you were able to bring back Patrick Kane. You were able to go out there and bring back Berggren. You were able to go and take care of those guys that you wanted to take care of. Plus, you still have cash left over. You would still have approximately $8 million left over, which would then allow you to go out there and sign that big name free agent that this team is looking for a forward. So to me, it didn't make any sense because what the Islanders were looking for is they were looking for draft capital so they could move up. In this draft specifically, 13 was worth more than what I believe was 14 and 15 or 14 and 16 because there was a dramatic fall off after you got past that 13th pick. The Wings could have done something, and yet they didn't do anything. And I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of Red Wings fans are having. You look at the lack of aggression coming out of that front office. And again, we've talked about it a lot. The pro player personnel is not good. If that's Chris Draper, he is doing an absolute shit job. Like we said, there's a lot of really bad contracts on this team. But you know what you can do? You can go to the Islanders and say, hey, look, we'll give you our 13th overall pick. We'll throw in a second or a third round pick. It doesn't matter. You're not going to see these guys for 3, 4, 6, 8 years. I mean, look at Kosa. It's going on year 5, I think, maybe even year 6. I don't even know at this point. You're not going to see him forever. So what does it matter? You're looking to win now. Trade that first round pick. Trade a second and maybe even a third. Trade a first this year and a second this year and a second next year. It doesn't matter. Add in a body of a JT Compher or an Andrew Kopp. Like add in a player to go back the other way. Like you can figure stuff out. Now, look, I understand the Islanders needed to free up some cap space because they butchered the Noah Dobson deal. But you go out and you get a guy who can help solidify your defense and be a face of your organization. That's that guy. That could have been that guy on this team. And yet they did nothing, which then leads me to what we've seen with what they've done with free agency, right? Mitch Marner, obviously not coming here, going to Vegas. Aaron Ekblad, you touched on that. He's staying at home in Florida, and that was the one guy that everybody was like, all right, maybe we can get him. Maybe he can come here. He can help out. There's not anybody available right now who you're like, oh, my God, that guy would be awesome to go get. That guy would be fantastic. All of these guys are signing deals to stay where they're at. So you're going to have to trade. And obviously, you now have some cap space. You've got a bunch of prospects that you really like, and you have draft capital. So you need to go make a move. Trade and go get a guy. Go get a guy like Robertson out of Dallas. Go pick up a player. Make a blockbuster move and help your team. Help build your team. them not being active in free agency, does it seem like to you that nobody wants to come to Detroit? Nobody wants to take Steve Yzerman's money? Like, even if you've got to overpay, like I don't count Alex DeBrincat. He wanted to come back home. He wanted to play here. If that's kind of what you're left with as far as what you can go and select from, it's going to be really, really tough to build a team that's going to contend for playoff spots and contend for the Eastern Conference and contend for a Stanley Cup. It's going to be really, really, really difficult to do it that way, because as much hockey talent as the state of Michigan puts out there, you're not going to be able to get all those guys. Not all those guys want to come and give you a sweetheart deal and say, I want to go back home. It doesn't work that way. You need to be able to go and sell whatever it is that you're trying to build. And that's kind of where I think some of this disconnect is, and why, if you are a Red Wings fan, you should be upset. You should be frustrated, because there's this gigantic disconnect with your general manager, the guy putting your hockey team together, and the premier talents in this league. When he goes to sit down either with their agents or with them and sit across from them and say, hey, look, this is the vision that I have. This is where we're tracking. This is what the trajectory is. I feel like when we bring you in, it shaves a year or two off of that. Next year, we're in the playoffs. The year after that, we've got more cap space. We're going to go get another guy. This is my game plan. This is what we're looking to do. I want you to help me recruit these guys and help build this team, and let's go for it. And those guys are sitting across from him just rolling their eyes. They're like, thanks, Steve, for the meal. Thanks for the drinks. We'll be in touch, which means, fuck you, go get bent. And that's kind of where we're at. Like, Steve Yzerman has done such an abysmal job, John. It is so frustrating. I love this guy. He sucks as a general manager. Like, I do not understand what the game plan is. And this isn't the first time you've ever heard me say, I don't understand what the game plan is. I don't know what he's trying to do, because it's utter chaos. Like, I get if you want to build with young guys. I understand you wanting to build up your minor league system. I get that, okay? But you know what? We're in this spot where you go out there, you make a big move, you bring Alex DeBrincat in. You go in and you get the one good hit from Patrick Kane, you bring him in, and then you re-sign him, and you re-sign him again. Okay, cool. So now you've got a couple of guys who are familiar with each other, play real well. You've got Dylan Larkin, whatever you think about him. Okay, cool. You got Mo Seider, who really should at this point be, I feel, further along than what he is. We'll say he's your 1B. He probably a top line second defenseman, but he's got no help. So I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here, because you've got some smatterings of pieces. You got a couple high end contracts, and when it gets past basically DeBrincat and Larkin and we'll say Raymond and we'll say Mo Seider, you just kind of got guys. Like, there's no identity for this team. There's no that guy's the face. Like, you think Dylan Larkin's the face of your organization? We talk about it all the time. Dylan Larkin on a Stanley Cup contending team. Dylan Larkin on the Florida Panthers. He's your third line center, maybe your fourth line center. Like, he's just a guy. Like, and here's the deal: the reason he wears the C, it's not because he needs to be the best player on the team. We've shown that, right? There's the internal debate, right? Was Sergei Fedorov better than Steve Yzerman? Yes, from a talent standpoint, Sergei Fedorov was a much better player than Steve Yzerman. Sergei Fedorov could play both ways fantastically. Offensively, he was gifted like Pavel Datsyuk. Defensively, he was gifted like a guy like a faster Chris Chelios or a more offensively skilled Nick Lindstrom. He was absolutely fantastic as far as his skill level went. But Steve Yzerman was your captain for a reason, because he led. He was your leader. Sergei Fedorov wasn't that guy. He was out there banging Anna Kournikova. And look, I don't blame him. She was hot. But whatever. He wears the C because he's supposed to be your leader. I don't see the leadership coming out of that room with him in it. I don't know what presence he has. I don't know what he does. I don't know what pictures he has of who touching what or who. I just don't get it. I don't. I don't like Dylan Larkin. I've never liked Dylan Larkin on this team. It hasn't worked out. I don't know what this roster is supposed to be. At this moment in time, it looks like you've got some aging veterans with high salaries, and you're waiting for the young kids to come take their spot. The problem is the young kids are 2 years away at the earliest, probably closer to 4 years away if we're being serious. I don't know what this roster is. I need him to be aggressive and go figure something out, because what we're seeing, this is not it. And then you compound all of this with the gaslighting that you get from a news outlet like The Athletic, where the Wings are poised for a big move. Okay, cool. What is it? Because I've already ran down. There's not really anybody left out there as far as top name free agents, anybody that you're going to kind of wet your pants for. So, like I said, it's got to be a trade. Do you feel like the Wings are going to make that trade that's going to make you say, okay, cool, I'm back on board? Because, John, right now, I'm off this boat. I don't want to be on this sinking ship anymore. I'm so frustrated with watching what has happened and what has been done with Steve Yzerman at the helm that I'm done with it. He needs to make a big move like The Athletic gaslit me into believing was going to happen. And the only way I see it happening is coming via trade.
Yeah, exactly. And it sucks because what you're seeing across the league is like the NFL. Most teams draft and keep their own. Like, you're not going to get a lot of good talent. And Yzerman's been honest, and it just sucks because it's so true that you got to be aggressive in trades. Look at what happened. Vegas was aggressive. They got Mitch Marner, but you have to give up something in return. You got to give up assets. And so it seems like your question is, what do the Red Wings want to do? They want to stockpile a bunch of young guys. And the question mark is, okay, if it's not 2025, 26, is it next season when everybody gets to come up and start to weave in? Is it like one a year? What stinks is that I think you can still develop and have an upward trajectory and still make the postseason. So that's where it's been difficult, in that your defense hasn't been solid. The moves that you've made haven't produced the impact across the board. Tarasenko was a bad pick. You recognize, all right, Petrie just kind of has been a guy. Just, you got a bunch of Jags, and you gotta get some more talent and weave in some more of the young talent moving forward. Do I feel like it's going to be a big move? I think it'll be like a B minus move. I don't think the wow moves are done. You're not going to get the best of the best, but he might make a move for a scorer or another defenseman or a move like that. So I just feel like that the big move, are the Wings poised for it? No, because it's just tough to do. And I just think that the Red Wings are committed to their plan, and it doesn't feel like Yzerman's pressured by any stretch of the imagination. The fans are not happy, but maybe you hope that McClellan with you just basically, you got to get a little bit more rugged in terms of defense. You got to get a little bit more, make it so difficult for teams to come in and play you, not push around the Red Wings, do a little bit more of the pushing. So we'll see. Do I think that as constructed, they're a playoff team? They're close, but not anything where you're on an upward trajectory. You're facing long odds, and Montreal just got so much better. Toronto's maybe on the downslide. Maybe it's time. And like your point, does anybody want to come to Detroit on the hockey front? It's a good question. Sophie Cunningham is going viral on this Tuesday because she said, I don't know. Should the WNBA come to Detroit? We'd love to go to Miami. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Well,
thanks, Sophie. She's hot, by the way. You ever watch her?
Yeah, dude. She's a baller.
She is all over my my Instagram. She is.
Oh, your algorithm. Yeah, she's all over my algorithms too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the good algorithms going on, Doc.
Yeah, we do.
So it's fascinating to see that kind of thought. But look, it stinks.
Hold on 1 second. You brought up Montreal, right?
Yeah.
Montreal. If you're a Red Wings fan, I think you should take a look at Montreal. Go back 2-3 seasons. Look at where Montreal was. Look at what Montreal has, and look at where they're now tracking. Montreal was a team that was vying for a Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. Then they fell all the way down to the bottom, past you, right? Like, they hit the basement floor hard. It was like being an alcoholic and hitting rock bottom, where you wake up in the middle of the street, your wife has left you, took the kids, sold the house, moved all the way across the country to go be with Tybo Tony. and you're laying in the gutter in your underwear that have a rip in the side of them where your left ball hangs out, and that's all you've got to your name, and you're trying to figure out how I ended up here. Like, they hit rock bottom. And last year, they were able to find their way vying for a playoff spot, and then they go out and they swing this trade the day before, or the day of the NHL draft, or the day before the NHL draft, day of the NHL draft. And you're still sitting here kind of stuck at home, living in your mom's basement, talking about all the Stanley Cups that you had when you were in high school. That is exactly what the Red Wings feel like. They feel like that dude who peaked in high school and hasn't been able to move on with the rest of their lives. While you've got the Montreal Canadiens, who is Alcoholic Al, who hit rock bottom, and now he's bounced back and he's running a Fortune 500 country, and he's banging a supermodel. And we're just like stuck like, oh man, you want to play Sega Genesis? I got NHL 94. It's pretty cool. That's what it feels like being a Red Wings fan. It sucks. It sucks.
You said it.
I'm frustrated.
You said it exactly right. It's draft and develop. Nobody wants to hear that, unfortunately, because the nobody likes waiting 4 years for Carter Bear to get out there and play and see what he can do. But overall, most people believe that the Red Wings have a nice crew of young talent across the board, but it's just going to take a while. And it's just unfortunate that really in the end, it's going to be maybe even a decade where they don't make the playoffs this year, but then they start, and so that just to me raises the expectation that, okay, if that's the plan, then you owe a couple cups if you're going to take this long. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like the bigger end talent is going to other spots, and it doesn't feel hopeful just based on the fact that Steve Yzerman said, hey, free agency is going to be tough. They got to make trades. But unfortunately, the players that the Red Wings would want to target, 4 or 5 other teams, are potentially in the mix bidding and winning. So we'll see. We're recording this on a Tuesday. We hope that something impactful happens. But as of now, the question mark that we're going to ask for the Red Wings and the Pistons, did you get better? And, man, it doesn't feel that way just yet. It just feels like they're treading water, trying to figure out how to catch up to some of these teams in the East. And it's a tough spot to play in. And you realize other teams are getting better, a little bit more aggressive, have better goalies, have better young talent. So you just feel like you're a little bit behind the 8 ball. And it's not something we would expect after this many years with Steve Yzerman. But now you turn your attention to the Pistons, and they get dealt a bad blow, because I just felt like Malik Beasley and what he could bring to the table was really interesting. And then you find out, based on the alleged issues with gambling on the National Basketball Association and his own stats, that potentially he gave up $42 million over 3 years with the Pistons. They've moved on. They've pivoted. They went out and got Karis LeVert. They're looking at other options, and you realize, okay, Ivy's going to come in. You maybe realize, okay, you can kind of make up for his production, but those threes that he was making was solid. Unfortunately, he didn't show up at all in the postseason to the degree that everybody would have expected to help the Pistons get over the hump against the New York Knicks. Cause, man, that was really kind of devastating. How much of an impact is it? I think his future in Detroit's over. I feel like they've moved on. The Karis LeVert situation kind of indicates that's the case, and you can't. Basically, these investigations take forever. It's not going to be one quick fix and, hey, yeah, he's cleared. Feels like you can't risk a guy that allegedly has financial problems, was in something that potentially is a life ban in the NBA. I think that the Pistons probably, we've watched Malik Beasley play his last game in a Pistons uniform, and it just seems like wherever he goes, there's trouble. Similarly with the Bucks, there's always some noise around him. Too much noise. I just don't want him back. I think that Trajan Langdon got the jolt he needed. He understands they can move forward. You basically, I think, with the Tennessee pick, have a young guy maybe in waiting that took a lot of threes, that maybe with him, LeVert, and Ivy, you start to basically make up for the production. But, man, it was nice to have a guy that was just a three-point assassin. But, unfortunately, this investigation regarding alleged gambling, and gambling on basketball, of all things, man, I thought that was a big, huge disappointment to start the offseason for the Pistons.
He might have sunk his career. Yeah. I don't know if he's able to latch on with another team after all of this is said and done. But, yeah, definitely lost a couple $1 million. Sounded like they had the framework for a 3-year deal in place, and he basically crapped it all away. So now you're going to go out, you're going to bring in Karis LeVert, which is whatever. Look, Paul Reed comes back again. It's whatever. There are conversations about the Pistons trading for Malik Monk. It's maybe a sign-in trade deal with Dennis Schroeder, who was very vocal about wanting to be here, but it doesn't sound like the Pistons necessarily want him back for whatever reason. I thought he was a very good defensive player. I thought in the playoffs he stepped up. To me, he felt like a guy who you would probably want to try to bring back and try to help facilitate some holes on this team. But to me, the centerpiece of this Pistons offseason was going to be Malik Beasley. This was a guy who was arguably in contention for Sixth Man of the Year, and we could argue that he should have won it. Only to now, this guy might not ever play a game of basketball in his life because he might be blackballed by the NBA because he might get found guilty of gambling on basketball while playing. So, and like you said, always a little bit of noise around him. I feel like you don't necessarily need that. You don't necessarily want that if you're this young core, this young Pistons team, which I guess kind of brings me to this question is, have they done enough? Like, do you feel like there's enough here, especially with the body blows that the NBA has taken over the course of the playoffs, and more specifically with the body blows that the Eastern Conference has taken, right? Like, no Jason Tatum, down with an Achilles. Damian Lillard, done with an Achilles, just released by Milwaukee. So he's now technically a free agent. Might be a guy that you could look into possibly signing, but again, he's older. An Achilles injury isn't necessarily something that you come back to being what you were before. And if we are being honest, he had slowed down dramatically from where he was probably 5 years ago. Tyrese Halliburton, dead because of an Achilles. So it does kind of feel like things are kind of wide open. With Lillard leaving Milwaukee, Giannis is now upset. So Giannis might be leaving Milwaukee. So it does kind of feel like it's open as far as being able for the Pistons to rise to the top and take over as the number one team in the East. But look, Paul Reed coming back, Karis LeVert being added to this roster. You're going to go out and maybe trade for Malik Monk. Okay. Like, none of this really moves the needle for me, you know? And we talked about the free agency. It wasn't a really good free agent class. If the Pistons were going to make any moves, they were going to have to make a trade for a move to try to bring somebody in because, you know, Miles Turner was kind of the guy, and it sounds like Milwaukee's trying to woo him there by shipping off Damian Lillard's busted ass ankle and himself. So, I mean, there's a lot going on, but I don't know if this team is any better. That being said, I don't know if this team is any worse. I just, again, you look at the Red Wings and you look at the Pistons, and they're both in completely different places. If we're being at all honest, right? The GMs of both those teams have done and are doing completely different jobs here. I feel like Trajan Langdon has hit it out of the park and is killing it, while I feel like Steve Yzerman is slowly dying and withering away on the vine. So I just don't feel like either one of them has gone out this offseason. I know it's early, but has done anything impactful or anything where we're just like, cool, that's the move, let's go. Anything that really breeds confidence. You know, Malik Beasley coming back, I don't know if it would have breeded confidence. When I looked at the numbers of the contract, I was like, I like that. It gives them some money, gives them a little bit of flexibility. Again, like you said, the guy who in the regular season could knock down threes and really help take over a game. Not necessarily a guy who's going to do it in the playoffs, but he is a guy who can really help elevate you during the regular season, and maybe you hope he grows into something where he can take over a series or two if need be. But I just don't feel like any of these moves the Pistons have done. And Trajan Langdon was very, very transparent. He's like, yeah, we're probably not going to be making any big moves. I was really hoping that was just him just talking and not necessarily telling the truth. It looks like he was telling the truth. Does that frustrate you at all? Because I feel like this team is in such a prime spot where if 2 weeks ago you would have told me, look, the big signing is going to be Malik Beasley. That's the guy they're bringing back, and that's going to help keep this thing together. And it's just going to be bringing the band back together. It's going to be BBB. If you would have told me that, I would have been like, dude, there's no way. They've got to go out there. They got to make a move. I know what Trajan said. There's no way they can do that. I'll be frustrated if that's what they end up doing, if it is BBB. Are you frustrated that they're basically bringing the band back together, or at least the original game plan was bringing the band back together, but Malik Beasley and his gambling issues have kind of forced them to pivot, but it's not like they pivoted hard. They pivoted to Karis LeVert.
No, the deal is it's about Jaden Ivey. It's going to be about his hopefully comeback, and you recognize that, okay, hopefully he's the Robin to Cade Cunningham's Batman, and you have an opportunity for Tobias Harris and the development of Duran and Isaiah Stewart. So, yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not exciting. It's not blockbuster-ish. If it doesn't feel like the question of the day is, are the Pistons better? Well, maybe ever so slightly if Ivey can come back and average 20 points a game and be the guy that can shoot the three and kind of take over that role. Maybe. But in the end, you knew what you had in Beasley, and that was a nice threat. It'd be nice to have Ivey and Beasley to kind of play off of each other or be, in a situation in which maybe Beasley would have taken a lesser role. We'll see what it's going to look like moving forward, but it does have a feel of like, hey, we trust our own, and we're going to try to get better in certain spots. And unfortunately, Trajan Langdon and Steve Yzerman have been honest. They haven't lied. It just stinks because most people feel like, okay, that the teams are in third gear, they're happy, they're not in the basement, but both, you just want to kind of get to that fourth gear, fifth gear, similar with the Tigers and Pistons, with Tigers, Pistons, Wings, and Lions, is that everybody feels comfortable with the talent evaluation in the draft. It's just the acquisitions externally to get over the hump just haven't been exactly right. And it's very tough, but other teams seem to be doing it. Other teams seem to find ways to get better through free agency and trades. It's just a little bit more difficult across the board. Being Detroit, it's not a tax-free state. We understand the perception. People, it's sometimes you have to overpay. And within the confines, it does feel like the general managers have kind of all got together, gotten a scotch, and said, okay, how do we stay consistent? And let's go. We benefit from the past regime of them being terrible. We get to the postseason, that gets us another 5 years to build. And we're just like, okay, but really in the end, Detroit's a championship town. Like, we've seen all this before. We've seen playoff runs. We've seen teams built. We've seen the runs with the Tigers before. What are you doing to build a championship? How do you get over the hump? And that's the biggest question mark, is which general manager and his draft and develop style is going to get the championship. I feel like the Tigers are going to make a splash. I feel like there's a chance to get a pitcher, reliever, make it more of an impact. I feel like the Tigers are going to be that team with an opportunity because of the lack of a cap. Maybe the next team will be the Pistons, to find somebody out there that's available. It stunk that some of the options have gone away, and I'm glad they didn't pay the player that went to the Kings. I just feel like, okay, $15 million a year for 3 years, not needed. I realize, okay, you move on. Schroeder was a good player, good fit, but you can get better with the young players that you have, and hopefully the players do develop. But yeah, draft and develop takes time, man. And I think in Detroit, the next step is just got to be finding acquisitions that are able to supplement the talent that you have to get to the next level, because there's opportunities in baseball. There's opportunities with the NHL to kind of get over that hump. And the Lions, I do think as well, if they can get that one key player, maybe it's the defensive end, maybe it's another offensive weapon to get you over the hump. But I feel like every team's close. But the last final piece is that last acquisition to get over the hump, and that costs dollars. And I think the Steve Yzermans and the Trajan Langdons are kind of cut from the same cloth, and now the Scott Harris too, which is they're rigid. They have a plan, and they just don't want to veer too much off of it because it's a risk. Because when you make that bold move, that's a declaration of, expectations rise that you believe you're a championship winner. And when you put that out there, then it's really putting yourself on the line, because Detroit is title town. It's, hey, win a championship or you're on the hot seat. And I respect the fans that are like that. I respect that most of the fans want a title. Like, it's great to win. It's great to be in the postseason. It's great to have regular seasons, but in the end, you got to eventually pay it off. The earlier Tigers didn't pay it off, and that sucked. The Pistons haven't been back. The Wings haven't been back in a decade. And the Lions are getting their first taste of consistent success. So let's see which of the general managers are going to take that next step forward in going from good to excellent to elite. And we'll be here to follow it. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSCROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. It's now championship town in Detroit. Moving forward, taking steps forward from playoff contender to title winners. Who gets that team over the hump? I can't wait to see it. And it stinks right now because clearly, I think by all accounts, in terms of the fans, Steve Yzerman is the 4th ranked general manager in town in terms of popularity, in terms of effectiveness. And that's wild to see because I think you and I, 5-6 years ago, would have put Yzerman first in terms of talent evaluation, in terms of cachet, and he's taken a dip with the moves that he's made with the Red Wings. So we'll see if the moves made this offseason with the Pistons and Red Wings get them over the hump and secure the intended consequences. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Our time's up for today. Enjoy the summer. Stay cool. Hopefully your AC. Make sure you treat your AC with respect because no worse day than a hot 100-degree day with that humidity and your AC goes out. So make sure your people are taken care of and your guys are in order. That, hey, if you need a phone call, that they come and answer because if you're stuck in this heat, my God, is it a bad day. I can't wait for next week when we fire it up again for the next edition of Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.